and welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And today, my guest is Garfield Reid, author of Misconceptions and Misinformation by the Black Hebrew Israelites. The link for the book is in the description, which is going to be for the topic. Check out the book, guys. It's really good. Also, on top of that, he has a YouTube channel. Hit the link that I have right on the title. Go right there, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and check out his videos. He's been doing content for quite a while. I watch his videos. I watch your lives, your debates. I love it. Good stuff. Same topics as what I'm getting at. Same sort of energy that I bring. If you like my channel, you'll love his channel. So I definitely recommend it. And welcome. What's going on?
Hey, I'm here, man. I'm here. There's a lot of controversy going on about the Black Hebrews. But let me put a disclaimer out immediately.
Sure.
They now today say they don't like the term Black Hebrew Israelites. They are offended by it. I use it in the sense that black is a political statement that people use in general. If you're African American, if you're of African descent, you use the term black. So they are black and they are Hebrew Israelites. So they don't like that term. So if you say it off the bat, they're like, oh, that's like you using the N-word. That's how they claim today.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. That wasn't my. In fact, and now that you mentioned it, I'll change the title of the video. What do you think is the preferred way to describe it? Hebrew Israelites?
I look at the Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, that's be fine.
All right. Thank you for letting me know that.
I'm not going to change the name of my book because, of course, I'm black.
The book's out there.
And I could use it. But
sure, I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to talk about today is basically, we could get into my book or whatever, but I do have some slides I want to show so people could get familiarized with how this group came about and what they teach. And there's different factions. Just like you have Christians and different Christians and so forth. You have Pentecostal, Methodists, and they all war. We got the truth. The Roman Catholic said, hell no, we have the truth. So it's the same way with these guys. So I need to give everybody an idea of who this group is and why. I don't think they're dangerous the way how they're portrayed. They don't hurt folks in the community. They don't hurt folks outside the community. They basically saying that we are the ancient Israelites, which personally, I don't think anyone can prove whether they're black or white. I just said it's a faith. You could be a Jew by faith. Anyone can be a Jew. That's how I look at it. I don't know how everybody else looks at it, but if you want to say it traced back to Jacob, you can't prove that. So that's out of the question. All right.
Sure.
But I do want to share some slides and get into them. I don't know if you want to talk about something before. I could just get right into this.
No, get right in. Let's get right into it. This is
all right. Beautiful. All right. So let me get here. Make sure I'm sharing and make sure it's
there you go.
It looks pretty presentable. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, what you're looking at is a group by the name of One West. They have something called the 12 Tribes Chart. The 12 Tribes Charts, basically, what it does, it's basically telling you the 12 tribes of Israel. So on the right side, you'll see the Orthodox, the mappings of what the geographic locations of where the 12 tribes would be as far as the biblical text is concerned. And now they're saying that all these people are scattered all over the world, and they are now in Judah is the so-called Negroes in America. Benjamin, I'm from Jamaica. I was born in Jamaica, so actually, my dad is they only go by the father lineage. Orthodox Judaism goes by the mother. They go by the father. So although I was born in Jamaica, my father was Cuban, so I would fall under Manasseh. So they have something called the 12 tribe chart for the Native American Indians, for the Indians in the Central America and South America, and for folks that live in these different countries and areas. Haitians would be the tribe of Levi. Simeon would be the Dominicans, because Dominican Republic and Haiti is the same country, but it was Hispaniola and it split. So one side is Levi, one side is Simeon. As crazy as it sounds, they use scriptures to actually prove this. All right, I don't want anybody to think Garfield is making this up, but this is all that it is. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the things that they do, and of course, they have false prophets around. We have William Miller, who was a Baptist minister who predicted the end. We have the guy from Watchtower, and we have Joseph Smith, and of course, my favorite, Harold Camping.
Yes.
And so forth. So with false prophets, they say, I will raise them up a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him. I myself, I will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words. Then the prophet speaks in my name. But a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of the other gods, is to be put to death. So in other words, if you have a false prophet, you're literally supposed to put him to death. All right? But anyway, no one takes the Bible literal. But what I'm going to do is let me do it. Let me go big screen on you for a second. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the next one here. All right. Hold on a second here. Let's do this. All right. So they have a guy by the name of Prophet Ariel. All right. And he made a prophecy saying that in the year 2000, the world is going to end and we're going to rule you white folks. It's right here at the bottom. The current leader, apostle, and chief high priest Tazadat, born German grain, rose to power after the prophecy of Ariel that Christ would return in 2000 to slave or enslave all the Edomites. They call white people Edomites, failed to come to pass. So that little prophecy didn't come to pass. And of course, this is from the book Black Gods of the Metropolis. F.S. Cherry, who helped to start the movement, was one of the people that did that. But let me see if this video will play. Check this out.
Abba Bibbins get up with that impressive voice and that stately manner and that white beard. And he also used to wear a turban. And he wore a white turban. One time we were over there and they had the charts up. And they had the charts. They said, if you're Jamaican, you come from this tribe, and if you're from Barbados, it's that tribe, and read the book. Said, hey, come on, Pop. Hey, what is? You know that ain't right. He said, of course, Danny, I know that's not right. He said, but that's the hook. That's how we get them into place, and we wire them up to what's true. Well, years later, after he passed away and his sons and all of them, they either died or moved away, the Tanakh school began to teach those things as truth. This is the truth, and well.
So as you guys can see.
Hold on, I'm trying to get this video to play.
You're fine.
All right, so here we go.
Hold on. All right, so pretty much the 12 tribe chart of what they're talking about is all right, let me come down a little bit. It's basically a chart that pretty much says that they were going around teaching the world is coming to an end and this is going to happen and that is going to happen. And I'm trying to play this video, but I don't know why it won't play. Here we go. Here we go.
God is going to send his decree in these last days, and that is to totally annihilate America. America will be blown off the face of the earth by the year 2000. It's talking about Judgment Day.
Yeah, Christ is coming back on the White Horse. And he's coming back. He's going to take down the white man, the Edomites. That's why your Pope is down in the ground. It's going to happen by the year 2000.
You ready?
That's it, yeah.
These places that's going to be hit in a thermonuclear war is America. America's going to be wiped off the face of the planet Earth. That's going to take place before the year 2000. That's going to take place before the year 2000. That's going to take place before the year 2000. America has less than 628 days. America has less than 628 days. America has less than 628 days before this country is taken out and thermonuclear destruction.
This kingdom, America, is going to be destroyed before the year 2000.
Evil kingdom that God spoke of in the Bible. And all you so-called white people, your condemnation, you are condemned to what path? You're going to be in hell, you're going to be oppressed before the year 2000. Christ is going to come back.
Museum America is going to be destroyed before the year 2000 by thermonuclear destruction.
All right, so basically, I wanted to play that video before I played this one.
Sure.
But,
All right, so here we go.
So pretty much I said this fruit of the poisonous tree, the 12 tribes chart include all these nations. And if you look at the chart, ladies and gentlemen, look at it. And once you're watching the video, yes, all the people in these areas, they're saying the Seminole Indians. I don't know if people know the history of Seminole Indians. You know, it's runaway African slaves who mix with Indian tribes. That's where the Seminole Indians come from. It's a mixture. But those people, because remember they have up here, they have also North American Indians, and there's over 500 recognized tribes. So you have North American Indians, but yet still you also have the Seminole Indians, which is just nuts. Then you have African Americans are Judah, but yet still the Seminoles are mixed. Africa would be African Americans mixed with Indians. It's one piece of confusion. I mean, this is one of the old 12 tribe charts from other people. Other people had 12 tribes.
Also. Right. You have that in the English. The British had their Israelites too. Yep.
Yep. So this.
And by the way, real quick before you play the next clip, if any people might see that clip and think, "Wow, that's very problematic in the way they're describing America." That's standard for religious groups to predict the end of the world. This is not different than anything else. You pointed out Harold Camp and those guys. They're doing the same thing.
Same thing. That's why I had the whole false prophet segment. But this is the folks here from the Mormons. They're the ones who they possibly copied it from, because they were the first to say the Central Americans were tribal people. So you know, when Joseph Smith, he started saying people are from the 12 tribes of Israel and all that stuff. But anyway, let's take a look at how this group was formed. Originally, right, you had what's called at the top William Saunders Crowdy, and you had F.S. Cherry in the late 1800s. And let me add somebody who is not on the chart, William Christian. And they basically said that black folks in America are the Israelites of the Bible. So by saying that they're the Israelites of the Bible, you had William Saunders, William Christian, F.S. Cherry going around teaching this. Then later on in the 1900s, like around between 1915 and 1925, you had Rabbi Josiah Ford, who started something called, basically he had his own group that deals with Torah only or Tanakh only. They didn't believe in the New Testament. Then he met a guy by the name of Rabbi Wentworth. So if you look on the left-hand side, you see Rabbi Ford, he's from the Caribbean. You have Rabbi Wentworth, he's also from the Caribbean. He had his own movement, but he also believed that black folks were the Israelites, but he believed in the New Testament. He was a messianic guy, all right? But he wasn't following the Hebrew tradition. But he was, until Rabbi Ford went to Ethiopia with a guy by the name of Jakes Faitlovich, then he was convinced, and then he became a rabbi, all right? So now the commandment keepers were Torah only. They followed Orthodox Judaism, and they were actually teaching people how to speak Hebrew and had Hebrew classes and all that stuff. This guy right here, Rabbi Abba Bivens, he's the one that branched off from the commandment keepers and started something called One West. So when you saw those guys prophesying, those were the One West guys. They're the ones, he's the one that actually turned Judaism a messianic type Judaism, where you're claiming you're an Israelite, but you also believe in Jesus. So this was like the people who were Jews for Jesus. It's very similar. That's pretty much what happened. Because Jews in history, if they weren't Christians, they basically were following some form of rabbinical Judaism. All right. So this is pretty much where we're at right now. So this stuff here, I always call them a cult, because I always say a cult has 4 characteristics. You have a charismatic leader. You have to believe in the same thing, uniformity of beliefs. You can't differ with each other. There's an elitist attitude. They feel they are better than everybody else at large. And they have weird and wacky beliefs, like King James is black. Or, so yeah. I'm actually doing a debate in UK, maybe in the summer, with a gentleman from the group. Yeah.
Wow, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. All right. So of course, British Israelism is a root to all of this. With of course the great Ehrman, full of it, and people are still living. The Worldwide Church of God is one of the greatest people that push out the whole British Israelism thing, and a lot of it.
Yes.
All right. So let's do a quick history class of One West. So this is the guy I was telling you guys about, Josiah Ford. He's a Barbadian composer. He was actually a part of the UNIA with Marcus Garvey. He wanted Judaism to be one of the central focus of the movement. So him and Garvey got into it, and he actually got kicked out. All right. Jakes in 1930, Jakes Wentworth, the gentleman that I spoke about, he was the head of the Commandment Keepers, Ethiopian Hebrew congregation. And he basically became a rabbi. And once Ford had died, Wentworth takes over, and he became the main guy. So that's him right there on the left-hand side. That's Wentworth, the guy who is the root to the One West movement, because they branched off from his group. This is Jakes Faitlovich. For those who don't know, he's an Ashkenazi Jew, and he was literally, this is not even a conspiracy theory, he was funded by Baron de Rothschilds to basically, yes, and he basically was looking for Jews in Ethiopia. So that's what Faitlovich was doing. This is not even a conspiracy theory. All right. As you can see, Faitlovich was born in Poland in 1881. He received a grant from Baron Edmund de Rothschild to look for black Jews. Newspapers reported at that time the European scholar who had studied at the School for Oriental Languages at Sorbonne in Paris astounded the Ethiopian Emperor Menelik II with his fluent command of the country's languages and told him that the Ethiopian Jewish tribes were connected to white Jews elsewhere in the world. So the black Jews played a major role because, of course, the Israelites were looking for land. They wanted to get back to do whatever they had to do as far as land is concerned. And they basically wanted to align themselves with some Jews that they could actually find in history. So the Rothschilds funded this. No conspiracy here. This is actual history. This is actually in my book, in the chapter Ethiopia is not Ethiopia. So it's not a conspiracy. All right. This is a newspaper clipping from 1930. In the meanwhile, Professor Jacob Faitlovich of Union Hebrew College, who was making an exploratory trip in Ethiopia studying the various races and their ethnical backgrounds, came back in 1929 and reported that the Falashas of Ethiopia originated from the stock of Israel and were Ethiopian Hebrews.
Wow.
That was enough for the then Reverend Matthew. He embraced the Hebrew faith and in 1930 received his rabbinate and became Rabbi Matthew. He changed the name church to the Ethiopian Hebrew Congregation of the Living God.
Wow.
All right. So now he has the group, the main group in America. In 1969, a gentleman who we know as Eber Benjamin, and we know him as Abba Bivens, broke away and started what's called the One West Camp. The One West Camp is the one that put out that 12-tribe chart. The guys that you see that were prophesying the world is coming to an end. That's a picture of Abba Bivens at the top. And these are the guys that were with him. They had a guy by the name of Masha. He was considered King David reincarnated.
No way.
Hey, let me say
That's
it again.
messianic language right there.
Yep. King David reincarnated. So they had their schools, and pretty much this is what we have today. So you have all these different groups. You have General Yahan at the bottom. He's one of the guys, main guys who's on the ADL watch list. You have the guy in the purple guy, Nathaniel. So every time you see the guys in the purple, that's his group. So they all broke away from Abba Bivens' group that broke up, and then they broke up from them. And now you have all these guys who are the main players in this type of teachings of what they're doing. So this is the guy that made the prophecy about the year 2000. And he's the one that allegedly made up the 12-tribe chart. All right. All right. Let me go through a little bit more. Let me see what else I need to touch on here before I take this off. Okay. So a lot of the teachings that they have is very, let me come on to this for a second while I look for something. But a lot of the teachings that they have, you will find it very amusing. And why you'll find it amusing is because they claim Africans are Hamites. So the Hamites can't be, you won't be invited to any cookouts or anything because they just don't rock with anyone who's an African. Like,
and for anybody who has no idea what you're saying, in the Old Testament, they have the three sons of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And a lot of people point out they represent the three major races white, black, and Asian, or Semitic, I guess. Asian, Semitic, yeah. So and so those what you're talking about now, they agree with that model.
Yes.
Got you.
And the important thing is they are saying that the Native Americans are Israelites.
Wow.
So what I have to do is show when I had my debate with them, I had to show physical evidence in the Americas before the Assyrian exile. So when you look at something like the Karal Supe civilization, which is like 3000 BC, these structures are built, if not earlier than the ones in ancient Egypt, but at the same time, you have a civilization in Peru that's building structures that are just one of the great wonders of the world, the Karal Supe, over 5,000 years ago. Then you have mummies, which are 9,000 years ago in Chile. So you had human beings living in the Americas. You're saying they're acting like nobody lived here until, they were brought over here, or they left like the British Israelites. They left from Assyria, and they walked, a couple years, a year and a half before they got to America and so forth. So now when you look at like the 8th millennium pottery from prehistoric shell in the Brazilian Amazon, you have to point out science to them and show them that people actually existed and lived in these regions. The Mayan civilization, they're saying that those people, the Mayans, are Israelites. They don't bought the Clovis culture. I mean, you don't even need to go any further, because the genetic markers that they found with the Montana boy is actually what you find in Central and South America of what they're claiming those people are Israelites. They don't even carry the markers what the people from the Levant carry. But they want to say that these people are Israelites rather than gravitating to their own African brothers and sisters or descendants of those folks. They'd rather cling to people who they're not even connected to. It's just crazy. They say the Taínos are them, are the Israelites, and this is just basically what they do. So if you look at this genetic map, you'll see that the connection of the folks in North America is really totally different than pretty much the rest of the world. And
Right.
You're talking about Q3, you're talking about the R market that they have over here, the C
Wow.
market, totally different. And they want to say, although they have E1, B1A the most, and they're connected to West and Central Africa, they'll rather say they're related to the Native Americans or even related to anybody else but Africans.
Wow. So you really did not play around when you went into this research for your book. This is going deep now. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. So are they basing these theories off anything other than just kind of throwing out hypotheses that fit any model, or is this based off something that gives them some weight?
It's based off of 4 things. Their whole teaching is based off the Assyrian exile, the first exile. It's based off a second Esdras, which is it's an apocryphal book that was written in the 1st century. They think second Esdras was written in the 5th century BC, but it was written in the 1st century.
Right.
They think 70 AD, when the temple fell, that they scattered and 1 million people went into West Africa. That's what they believe. And they also, let me tell you, they use second Esdras. They use Arzareth. They use the same thing British Israelism does. It's the same thing.
Oh no, I was going to say that the British Israelites are on the same type of, methodology as this. It's just kind of it's odd that people really want to personalize Jewish history in this way. There's no other group of people in the world that you don't see this happening with. I don't know, Indians or something, like, oh, we're the real Hindus, and you only see this with the Jews. It's kind of interesting. And it's not just the Black Hebrew Israelites, but like you pointed out, there's also British Israelites. You also have other groups that do this as well. What is it about second Esdras that they're pointing to that gives them something to use for evidence?
All right, let me pull up second Esdras right now. All right.
And by the way, I do see the super chats, everybody. Thank you for those. We will get to them when we're done with this presentation. Thank you so much for those.
Yeah, let me get to second Esdras right now. And what the thing with second Esdras is very important, because, as I said, with the Assyrian exile, we know, and I know you've interviewed scholars who have talked about it, that it basically is probably 10% of the people that went back to Assyria based on the population numbers. But they think like all the people left. They
Yeah.
left. They went to here. Second Esdras, for those who don't know, it talks about the 9 tribes that were taken away from their own land into the exile. But the key with Second Esdras to figure it out, and this is from Eric Klein, Arzareth is not an actual place name, but is instead a corruption of 2 Hebrew words, Eretz Aheret, which just simply means another land. All right? So when you go to like the New Oxford Annotated Bible, New Revised Version, it breaks it down that the book was written in the 1st century, but also is that the book is something that we shouldn't take it completely literal. So let me just show you. Let me just go inside of. Here we go. So this is the verse that they normally use. Second Esdras 13 verses 40 to 45. And if you look at this right here, let me make this bigger for the audience for them to see.
Sure.
If you look at the end of the first verse 40, you see the word another land. If you look at the end of 45, you see the region is called Arzareth. Arzareth means also another land. Now look at this. This is when King Hosea, the king, whom Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. It could also say Arzareth. So now, if this is Arzareth, which just basically means another land, then when you say for through that country, there is a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arzareth, another land. So it's really a place that don't exist. Because what happened is over the years, Arzareth is said to be in England, it's said to be in the Americas, it's said to be a lot of different places. And a lot of people like to say, hey, it's us. It's us, and it's talking about us. But they don't understand that Arzareth is written in the 1st century. So that's the problem. They don't
Yeah,
want
this is a pseudepigraphal text that you get in later.
There you go. There you go. So Second Esdras is one of the big things that they use, right? And then another thing that they use is hold on one second here. Okay, we're the tribes, 10% of the tribes, the people that were left behind during the Assyrian exile. They don't value the information of what the scholars say. They think all the tribes went, and basically it's basically 10% of the population, and most of them went in the army and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So the 10 lost tribes, we know where they went, and as a matter of fact, we have scriptures in the New Testament, James 1, that says he's writing a letter to the 10 tribes. So if he didn't know where the 10 tribes was, why would he? And then in Acts 2, if you believe in the New Testament or follow it, it mentions the tribes, the areas that they were taken. Those people were coming back to celebrate the Feast of Weeks. So they were so mature, but also in Chronicles, you find them coming to celebrate Passover, and they came and celebrated it anyway. So, I mean, they were, some of the tribes. So you know that it wasn't all of the tribes, because some of them were celebrating Passover with Josiah from these different tribes. So I think it's just a misunderstanding and a teaching. But when you're part of a cult, you believe everything the cult says. You know what I'm saying? You don't.
It's very true.
You don't. Let's look at this for a second here. The population numbers. So in 2 Samuel 24, verses 9, it talks about, and Joab gave up the sum of the number of the people unto the king, and there were in Israel 800,000 valiant men, and in the men of Judah 500,000 men. So 800,000 men doesn't include elderly male and female. It doesn't include women and children. So I could add another 800,000 to make the population 1.6 and give my own estimates. But look in 2 Chronicles 13, what happened? And Abijah set the battle in array with an army of valiant men of war, even 400,000 chosen men. Jeroboam also set the battle in array against him with 800,000 chosen men, being mighty men of valor. So what happened is the Most High God, Yah, killed off 500,000 of the men of Israel. So you left 300,000 out of the 800,000. All right? So 500,000 dying leaves approximately 1.1 million. Assyrians took 40,000, which is less than 5% of the northern tribe population. So the people continued to live in the land the whole time period. The whole time period. All right, let me get out of this for a minute.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they continue to live there. That's why when they do the DNA now, you see the DNA is showing that the Arabs that live there, 50% of them have the DNA of the people that they found in the Levant during the Bronze Age to the Iron II period.
Wow.
So they found that. So
there was continuous
people
society going on in this Middle Eastern region where Israel is.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. That's interesting. It's a good point. And by the way, the text actually relates to that as well, because when they come back, the Israelites who do come back, they come back to people who have been there the whole time, and they complain about them. Oh, they lost their ways. They lost the ways of Moses. So it actually does relate that there are people staying back. They weren't all scattered out. It was just like you mentioned. I didn't know it was as little as 5% though. That's crazy. But yeah, it makes sense though. You know.
Yeah, I think yeah. So let's get to there's a couple of memes that they use.
Sure.
That I wanted to get into a little bit. So let me see if I want to show it here. Let me see. There's this Hitler. There's this meme that they use all the time. Matter of fact, this is it right here. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second here. All right. But anyway, they like to use this meme on the left. The one that said they left black. When he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated the Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black but came back white. So in the same article, this quote is found nowhere in this article, but they use that meme to prove a point.
Oh, so somebody just wrote that. Somebody just made that up, and it's not a real quote. Is that what you're saying?
It's not a real quote. Nope.
Wow.
Yep. And then this is another quote that they use. They talk about this film that they try to misuse Hitler's words and say that he said that the Jews were really Negroes and try to say it's them.
You understand? These near Asian, they turned around and realized that the Jews were black. Even Hitler knew the Jews were black. Now they tried to connect us to the land of Ham. You understand? Not understanding that. Remember what the Zondervan Bible Dictionary says, not the Negro. Right. You understand? Right. Next slide. So now,
yeah. So
you can see how this Ham thing, this Ham and Shem thing, is really a hurdle for them, because you could tell they really want to get around that somehow. Because I'm not saying the Old Testament's right when it says there's 3 races: Ham, Shem, and Japheth, white, black. That's such a simplified way of looking at the world. That's false in itself. But if we're going to believe the Old Testament, you kind of can't get around that model. You kind of have to use it if you're going to operate within the Old Testament. If that makes sense.
Yeah, this is a map that they use a lot. It's Negro land. Let me come out of here because I want to show exactly what they do with this map here. And it's very, very important. So let me, you know what? Let me scroll down a little bit. Let me get into this. So this is actually extremely important.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the slave ships, they used to keep records of different people, right? And what happened is how they pronounce your name is very important to them. So on I think it's about 810 people had like the words YAH in their names.
Oh, wow.
But technically, nobody's like taking your name and saying, what's your name? They're just basically guessing. So when they saw the YAH, they said, oh,
they said Yahweh.
Yahweh, right? So they have,
that's clever, though. You got to admit that's a clever point.
But if you look at the records, it's telling you how these different names are pronounced. They have to hire people to try to figure out what the names are. So the Yah name is really not even there, but it's in their eyes, they feel it's referring to them. You know, in the Yah as in Yahweh. So as amusing as it sounds, yes, they believe that. They literally believe that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, is there any arc I know you do? I know you get into your book. By the way, let me put up your little Get the book, guys. It's out there. It's in the links in the description. Great. It's really a good read. I recommend it. In the book, you do get into some of the archaeological stuff. Is there any evidence of archaeology of Judaism tribes in Africa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Can you?
And let me read. I'm gonna read a quote from my. I'm gonna read. I don't have it on the slides, but they are Jews in West Africa. But we got to be very careful because Jews. When we say Jews, what happened is Jews were traders. So to get involved with trading, and you know what? I'm gonna answer your question in a little bit. I don't want to.
Okay.
I want to actually show a slide.
Let's hold that thought for a second.
We could tackle it in a scholastic way.
Got you.
But for those who don't know, Jews were in West Africa and they were traders. A lot of them left. You're talking about the Sephardic Jews, the Iberian Jews.
Yes.
They did leave and come into West Africa. But you also had Jews who traded from Sijil Masya in Morocco and those areas early. And they would go to Taout. Taout had synagogues. That's in northwest Algeria. So before we get into that, I'm gonna come back to that in a minute. I wanna show something that's going on within the community that's very important.
Sure.
All right. When it comes to showing blackness, they like to look at when they use the word swarthy or black or dark to describe Jewish folks, right? In the past. So in this picture, who do you think they would say is the Israelite? They would say that the guy who the two guys are holding up.
Yeah.
But technically, the guys who are Jews are the guys with the yellow badges.
Oh.
They were told they were supposed to wear the King's Fountain depicting Jews recognized by the mandated yellow badges of identification, apprehending an African described as sheepish and drunk.
Wow.
So now, if you look here, they use the term dark and all these things to describe folks, but when you look at them, they are fair-skinned. So just because it says dark or swarthy, is, for example, Baruch Spinoza. Spinoza was called swarthy, olive complexion Jew, penetrating eye and long black hair. But when you look at the images of him, he doesn't look nothing like that. And you're talking about images when he was alive.
Yeah, those are relevant to it. Yeah, I see. That looks like a portrait that somebody drew of him, probably.
Yep.
I'm guessing.
So when you look at the idea, you get an idea of olive skin. Another person who is very important in this conversation is Gwendolyn Ruth Hicks. And she was called, she was called Black Irish, of course. And she was called Black Irish due to her black hair. But that's another thing with the Hebrew Israelites. They think King James is black. So when they see the term Black Irish, they feel they're referring to black people. When they say Black Dutch, when they say they don't understand the time period and what these people were using. So when you look at some of these folks who, this lady here was looked on as dark, and look at this guy, Maurice Berger, his parents were considered dark skinned, and this is him with his mom. And you see, they don't understand that in that time period, a lot of people, and what takes the cake for me is this guy. You know who this guy is? This is Al Capone.
Al Capone, yeah. Definitely.
The famous Al Capone. The book is called White on Arrival. And it talks about how he was described as dark and having a swarthy complexion. And we know Al Capone is the white of the whitest. But again, they don't understand how people write things in context. And we'll say, hey, he's black or whatever.
Well, he's Italian,
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let me get to this. Let me get to what we were just talking about. All right. So, yeah, should I show this one here? Yeah, so there's a book called Wider. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because this map, they use this map, Negro Land, to highlight this. There's the Wider slave close, they had the word Judah. If you could see it, I don't know if people in the audience could see it.
Yeah, I see it.
Auda or Wider, Widah. So they're saying that these are the descendants of Hebrew Israelites who came from out of Africa after 70 AD and went in. So now they're saying remembered their names and decided to call this place Wida. So now this is a popular argument that most of them use. But when you look at it now, let's go to this scholar here, Robin Law, who has done the work. If you look at the word, I don't know if you can see it online properly. Let me see.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. It said, although Oida is the spelling of the town's name current nowadays, it occurs in European sources between the 17th and 19th centuries in various other forms. In English, most commonly, Wida. In Dutch, Fida. In French, Juda. And in Portuguese, Ajuda. Now, for those who are watching don't know, Ajuda means help or aid. That's what it means. And actually, the Portuguese have the name for the place. But look at what the name was originally. Although all these are attempts to render an indigenous name that would be more correctly written by modern conventions as Hueda. So Hueda became Juda, Fida, Wida, and Ajuda. So it's really
Wow.
an indigenous word. So now they flip it now and say, look, it's us. We are the ones that's there. And it's us.
Wow.
So
It's clever. It's clever. You got to admit.
all right. Another claim that they have. Let me see if I should go through this here. All right. So hold on. Let me scroll down. Let me get some more stuff here. So we do agree, and anyone who studies history, I would agree that there are Jews in West Africa. But when do these Jews jump around or show up to even be in that area of the world? And that's very important.
Right. That's
And
the
the
question.
reason why that's important, because we have to be knowledgeable of where these people came from, why they came from there, and how they ended up, what were they doing, what were their motives for being in Africa at the time. And let's take a closer look at it. All right. So, to answer your question, Jews were in West Africa, but they were there for trading purposes, business purposes. They were also sleeping with African women and creating a class called the Luso-African, a mulatto class. The Luso-African is that they would sleep with the African king's daughter, so they now marry into the family. So if they are trading slaves, they would be closer to being connected. They were like now the inside connect to trade to the people at the ports. So those Luso-Africans would be separate. They would live separate from the African tribes, and they would have their own little areas they live in, practicing whatever religion or whatever, and they would live by themselves. But they were helping with the trade. So those people who mix with Africans, they created a Luso-African class. Now the problem is now, though they wouldn't be considered Jewish because the African women weren't considered Jews. They weren't considered Jews. So because they weren't considered Jews, what happened is it created a problem in the Jewish community. They had to draft them in and convert these people because you're having Jewish children, but you're not a Jew. So the children from that sex that man has can't be Jewish. Now it creates a problem in the religious aspect of being a Jew. So now that's what happened. But those people helped and assisted with the slave trade. And you find it in the Timbuktu community, you find it in the Niger community, you find it in Senegambia, you find it in the Luangwa Jews. They all tell you how they came about from the men having sex with the African woman.
And they came from Spain, where there's a population of Sephardic Jews. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because remember they were kicked out. They were kicked out in 1492. And by the way, for those who don't know, the Portuguese wanted the Jews to come back because they were losing money. The Jews brought a lot of money to them, and they wanted the Jews. They didn't hate them no more after they realized how much money they were losing. Come back in, Jews. We love you. Yeah, but it was too late. They were already settling. But the Jews did play. And I know this is an argument with the guy out right now, Ron Dalton. The Jews played a role in the trade, but not all Jews. I think people get offended when you say all Jews were involved in the trade and so forth. I think people get offended. But
Right.
there were Jewish merchants who made trade because it was legal.
Yeah, there was merchants from every race that were involved.
Exactly. But so the Jews in West Africa formed their own communities, yes, and there were Jews there that intermingled with African people. So there's no doubt in my mind that happened, and we need to. As a matter of fact, there's a gentleman that I interviewed from Israel. He came over here, and his family didn't come over as slaves. So there are Jews who traveled over who had children with Africans. So those children now who are converted now started to have children and they developed some sort of Judaism. Those people have a right to be drafted in. They weren't slaves.
Sure.
But you won't find anyone that was on a slave ship that came over that was claiming to be a Hebrew, a Jew, or an Israelite. All right. One of the claims that I'm gonna run through a couple of claims that these guys make. They claim that the tribe of Dan is in Dahomey, and
you hear a lot about the tribe of Dan because there's so many. It's so mysterious in the Old Testament. Yeah, and you could sort of drum up a lot of theories of who they are. They're seafaring peoples. Maybe they're from the Greeks. Maybe they're from this. But I'm interested to hear how they use this tribe.
Yeah, the tribe. They said the tribe of Dan is in Dahomey, and it comes from the word Dan comes actually is a root to Dahomey, right? But the issue is it comes from Dan, who was a king of Abomi. For those who don't know where Abomi is, you look at the map, you look in the purple, you see Abomi. That's where they're talking about. So Abomi, defeated by Dokunu, who then made a good threat by cutting open Dan's stomach and building his palace on the dead king's belly. So Ho in Dahomey, this is their oral tradition. This is where they say they come from. Not in the stomach of Dan. So that's what Dahomey means. And so now they're saying that because the word Dan is in the oral tradition, they come from the tribe of Dan. So that's the claim, which is absolutely nuts. Yeah, let's get to Israel Hill. Israel Hill, for those who don't know, George Washington, this is about the free blacks of Israel Hill. And it's very important. It's a book by Israel on the Appomattox by Melvin Patrick Eli. And Sam White's master, Richard Randolph, had offered a radical answer to Jefferson's moral dilemma. He denied that any dilemma existed. Randolph was not content to restore to his slaves their God-given freedom. He also called for them to receive 400 acres of his land on which to build new lives as independent men and women. When Randolph's family carried out his will in 1810, after years of delay, his ex-slaves gave the name Israel Hill to their new home in the rolling terrain of Prince Edward County, and they called themselves Israelites. Now, this was their promised land. So when they see this Israel Hill and they see the word Israelites in parenthesis, they say, you see, they knew they were Israelites. But what they're doing is, this was their promised land to which they had been delivered out of bondage. But Israel Hill amounted to more than a personal promise fulfilled. It was a visionary Southern experiment in black freedom. In building this community of free, self-supporting black landowners in the very neighborhood where the Israelites has grown up as slaves, Richard Randolph and some 90 African Americans had launched a small but audacious attempt to demonstrate that a harmonious society containing free people of both races could exist. So Israel Hill was an integrated society, integrated community. It was the first of its kind ever in America. It was a social experiment.
That's the cousin of Thomas Jefferson, right?
Thomas Jefferson, Richard Randolph.
Wow,
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
So they say it's Israel Hill because they know they were Israelites, and it's us. So let's look at another example of what these people claim. There's this, they talk about Hebrews versus Negroes. There's this author in Africa, Professor Olaudah. He uses a meme that these people use. And for those who can't see the meme, it says fine Hebrews. This is actually the original that I got from the Library of Congress on the right. But this is the Photoshop version on the left. They actually, somebody literally went on their computer and Photoshop and put Hebrews.
Why Hebos?
Because Hebos are attached to the Ebos. So this gentleman used it in his book, this meme on the left, which was fake, to make the point of the Ebos being Hebrews.
Right, but why didn't they just write Hebrews then?
Because Hebos is like another name. They're trying to say they call Ebos as in their
I got you.
Yeah, so they changed that.
And you caught him, and so you caught him then, huh?
Yeah.
You found it, so you went and found the original one and put it side by side?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's interesting.
All right, let me do one more guy. There's another guy who is the reason why I'm in America. There's a guy by the name of speaking about the Black Jews of Africa. By the way, Edith Bruder is a beast. You should try to get her on your channel, and she
absolutely.
Tudor Parfit also is the guy that she did her dissertation with. So he's a beast, and he taught her. Well, anyway, she talks about the community I told you about in Africa. On the Algerian-Moroccan border, according to a local chronicle discovered at the beginning of the 20th century by French A.G.P. Martin, the very earliest Jewish inhabitants of Taout and Gorara settled in the 1st century A.D. coming from Cyrenaica. Another tradition from the region of Tugger in the northeast of Taout reveals that the Jewish population is so ancient that they are considered the earliest white inhabitants of the area. In the most ancient period, whose tradition was conserved by memory, the country was inhabited by Jews who employed Negro workers who owned kisors and palm groves. Very, very interesting stuff about Taout. And for those who don't know, Taout is one of the most popular areas. You know, if you read this book, Jews of the Saharan Oasis, Elimination of the Tamantit Community, the same Taout community in Algeria, Africa. And they were trading. So if you look at these trade routes, you could see Siljamassi at the top. You could see Taout right here, below it right here, northwest. You see Klepman right here. So all of this had Jewish communities all over North Africa. So they would trade with Timbuktu, with Gale, near the Niger River. They're trading all over here. So Judaism is all over Africa. So it's not like it's not there. It's there. People need to acknowledge it. It's not a lie, you know?
Sure.
One of the most interesting things that I observe, right, about Judaism in Africa is that there were Jews. Like right here, this is a newspaper clipping from the Courier from 1862, Scotland. They were talking about African Jews. Here's in Bambara, the kingdom of Bambara, they are Jews in their religious rites, and they were black Jews. So it's not like people are hiding this. But when you read the history, they tell you it was white Jews or white men that slept with the African woman and produced the Negro Jews. They tell you in the history. It's not a Jews of mixed blood. It's nothing that's strange or hard. But let me introduce something to the people that's not aware. This is something called the Catalan Atlas.
Very famous map, maybe the most famous map of all time.
Majorcan Jews, where it showed pretty much where every Jewish community in the world was.
Right.
And what happened, if you notice at the bottom, ladies and gentlemen, you will see Mansa Musa. So you have the map, and it's showing you where these communities are. So the question you would ask anyone, African American or
he was like the Bill Gates of this time period.
Exactly. Where are these communities that they say they come from or stem from during this time period? You will not see it on the map. You will not see a Jewish community on this map until colonizers came in around the 1500s. You start seeing them in West and Central Africa. You see them coming in, and you start seeing them establish the Luanga Jews, the Timbuktu Jews, the Jews in Mali. You see them in the Niger area. You see them all over. So this is Mansa Musa, and they're telling their fellow Jewish guys that, hey, y'all need to hook up in West Africa because they got these guys with the gold, man. They don't want to tell us where it's at, but they got gold, and we need to start trading with them and doing something. And that's who Mansa Musa was. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have that. So black Jews in Africa, it's not a secret. It's nothing to hide. You know, and for those who don't know this guy, let me introduce you guys to this guy. He's Lo Bagola. He was a gentleman that went all over America speaking in front of Jewish communities. And he claimed that there was a Jewish community in Dahomey and that they had synagogues and he had the book, the laws of Moses. Come to find out, my brother, that this dude was a fraud. He made it all.
Wow.
He made it all up. He confessed in his book, but he didn't tell the whole truth. But the truth is, he was born, I think, in Maryland, and he made up the whole story.
Oh, he was American.
Yeah, he was American. But
Wow.
there's people that's running around teaching that Dahomey had, if you look at this, they said the kingdoms of Dahomey and Ashanti that they had Jews there and they had the synagogues, and it was from him, based off of the information from him.
And so that his information is still out there being used,
Yep.
even though he retracted it.
Yep.
Wow.
Another gentleman, let me get into this guy because this gentleman is the reason why I'm in America today. I have to give thanks to Olaudah Equiano. But before I do say anything else, I got to give him his props. He's the reason why slavery was abolished. He is one of the main reasons. He started it. He is a great human being for what he helped to accomplish. Now, what I'm about to say, I don't want anybody to be offended and say Garfield is being disrespectful to the ancestor. I'm just being honest and trying to show that the Hebrew Israelites use him as an example to say, hey, we are the Jews in Igbo land. You know, we are Jews. But let's pay attention. This is a gentleman, he wrote a book. He's the first black man to publish his own book. Let me say that again.
That's amazing.
In 1788, he decided to publish a book, his life story and so forth. He's the first black man to ever do that. All right? And he was getting mad royalties from this. Well, anyway, he has a baptismal record from 1959. And if you look carefully here at line number right here, where my marker is, you see his name. His name was Gustavus Vasa. He later changed it to Olaudah Equiano a year before he wrote his book. So it says here, Gustavo Vasa, a black born in Carolina, 12 years old.
Wow.
I want y'all to pay attention to this. All right. Now, moving on. We have the muster roll. Equiano is a free man. He writes in his book, and he says he was on a ship called the Roebuck. It's in his book. But when we find the records agree he was on the racehorse, and he definitely was there in the dates and times that he said. Now, if you can see the third word right here, South Carolina, you see Gustavo Weston. That was another name he used, 28 years old. Wow. He was born in South Carolina again. So we have two pieces of evidence, and this actually was when he was a free man. So he had no reason to lie. So we have the muster rolls, and we have other records too, saying where he was born. Now,
I just gotta say, your research is so thorough, and I'm very impressed. You're going into records. You got the physical records on here, man. I'm impressed. I'm just gonna say, guys, go get the book. But go ahead.
All right, this is a clip from his book, just so people to know that he put the racehorse, and he said he was there the 24th day of 1773. So when we look at the racehorse records, the racehorse was actually out the second time. You see, it was out from November 1771 to 31st 1773. Then it went out again from 23rd April 1773 to October. So on May, he was actually on the racehorse. He is actually being honest. His name is on the records, and it says he's born in South Carolina. All right. Now, another piece of records. This is his will. So 1797, if you notice, he changed his name to Olaudah Equiano. So that's his original name from birth. But his will, still he used the name Gustavo Vasa. If you look at his wedding picture, Gustavo Vasa, he married Susanna Cullen, who was actually a British lady. She was European, white, whichever way you want to talk, and whichever way you want to put it. And so for the Israelites out there, yes, your so-called Israelite brother married to a white woman, which is very offensive. They call them Edomites. All right. So Susanna Cullen, he married her. All right. But anyway, let's move on. I'm going to show some more records of Equiano and why there's a problem with Equiano. All right. So this is facial markings that he remember his dad had and all that stuff. So bear in mind, he was a slave. He was a slave who was free. And one of the first things he did, my brother, you know what he did first? One of the first things he did, he helped his doctor friend to start a plantation. So you're free and you got away from being a slave. You bought your way out. And one of the first things you did was go to my home country, Jamaica.
Wow.
And said, I'm going to get some Igbo slaves and start a plantation. Oh, man. It's not funny, but it's just funny.
I get the irony, though. I get the irony.
The irony of doing it. And this, ladies and gentlemen, this is in his book. This is not me making it up. This is not a conspiracy. This is him doing it. All right. Now, another thing now, he has 9 editions of his book. 9. So now, in the first edition, he puts, where, I don't know if you could see this on the screen, where it said, I was born in the year 1745, situated in a charming fruit vale named
Asaka.
All right. In every book, in the first edition, it actually says, I was born Igbo in the year 1745. Now, what happened, ladies and gentlemen, after the first edition, he took it out.
Why is that?
Let's talk about this for a little bit. So Garfield decided, let's go to Hattie-Trust, get your free account, and we found all the editions. So if you notice, he said, The Life of Olaudah Equiano or Gustavo Vassa, the African, written by himself, volume 1, second edition. Look at the second edition. Again, you don't see no Igbo here. I was born in the year da-da-da-da. Another edition.
So you actually found these editions and compared them all. Wow.
Not there again. Not there again. Not there again.
Wow.
Not there again. Ladies and gentlemen, if I was to write something and say, Garfield, I was born in Cassia Park, Jamaica. And all of a sudden, the second edition, I remove Cassia Park, I remove Jamaica. Y'all gonna be like, this dude here is lying.
He's honest. Yeah, there's something he's hiding. Right away, you think. Absolutely.
So look at this dude just wrote a comment says whitewash. Hey, we got to be careful because guess what happened now? He's the one publishing his claim it's a conspiracy because he's the one that's publishing his book. Remember, so he's the one taking it out. So if you look at this picture on the screen, this is the picture in his book, but when we publish it today, this is the picture they use, the one on the right. It's not the same guy. This is it's a very strange story, this guy. Very strange.
It is.
But it's one of again, I love him because of what he has done for me. It's because of him I'm in the country. But another strange thing is that he felt that the Igbos who are Jews were originally white and they turned black in Africa. That's another thing. So if you want to claim this is a guy you want to follow, I don't know if I was a Hebrew Israelite, I'd want to claim him. I wouldn't want to do that. Another situation that happened is he said, I whitened my face that they might not know me. He actually went to court in full white face.
Are you serious?
I am serious as a judge. I am serious as a judge. He whitened his face. He represented his friend in court. And I want to read a quote from his book, page 56. I now not only felt myself quite easy with these new countrymen, he's referring to white people,
sure,
but relished their society and manners. He said, I no longer looked upon them as spirits, but as men superior to us, and therefore I had the stronger desire to resemble them. Wow. To imbibe their spirit and imitate their manners. I therefore embrace every occasion of improvement, and every new thing that I observed, I treasured up in my memory.
Mm.
So he wanted to be a white man.
Michael Jackson of the ancient of the
Of the
18s.
1700s.
Yeah.
This is nuts right here. Oh, my keyboard battery is low. So let me hurry up and get this out the way. There's another part where he was in love with this white girl, and he married a white woman. So I mean, he did a lot of things that you wouldn't find so-called Israelites of today doing. Let me see what else. All right. And by the way, to the story of him being in the land, it's still an argument out there because we do have records him saying that he comes from South Carolina, but a year before that's when he changed his name. And actually, these two guys had a bet. A guy by the name of Thomas Clarkson and a guy by the name of it's from this book Igbo in the Atlantic World. They actually had a bet that he could find a guy that did what Equiano did, because they wanted to fight slavery, but they needed somebody, a witness who was an actual slave, and Equiano fit the bill perfectly.
Wow.
All right, let me get off Equiano before these people strike me. All right. So why the Judah? All right. See if there's anything else I want to touch on before I stop sharing my screen.
And before we get to super chats, I want to ask you on your final thoughts. Going through all this research, what is your final takeaway about this movement? Is it legit? Is it half legit? Is it not legit at all? Maybe you want to rank 1 to 10 what you think about it. But that's after you're done.
Yeah, let me say this, and I want to say this to everybody that's listening carefully. All right, I do not hold my tongue for anybody. I don't think any Jewish person, any Hebrew Israelite is connected to the 12 tribes or Jacob. So it goes for anyone, not only the Hebrew Israelites. I think they are misguided by information that they are actually literally misusing. And I want to say it's very important for us, and I could stop sharing. It's very important for us to understand you are running from your African background to be somebody that you can't be because of your hatred for your African culture, your quote-unquote Hamite culture. You see, if you look at Shem, Ham, and Japheth as real people, you have fell into the trap. I don't believe they're real people. I think the writers is just trying to tell us where people come from, and it just so happens he didn't even include America is not even in the Bible. The Caribbean is not in the Bible. None of these places are in the Bible. But what we're doing is superimposing a belief system on all problems today. The truth of the matter is the Bible has backfired for what its purpose is. The Bible was developed in the late in the Hellenistic period. I don't know if you saw the recent article talking about the origins of Judaism, where Jonathan Adler, I'm going to try to get an interview with him too.
There's a lot of people coming out saying that it might be newer than we thought. Judaism's not as old as we thought before. And you look at Herodotus. Herodotus is writing in this 5th, 6th century BCE. No mention of Israel. No mention of Judaism. Like it's like it doesn't. He doesn't even think. Doesn't even. It's like he doesn't even know about it. You know.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone can trace their lineage back to any patriarch. I think the person who actually composed the Bible together was doing a beautiful thing. He wanted to tell the people in like the 1st century, 2nd century BC that listen, if you follow these rules and laws and commandments, all the things that happened with the Assyrian exile, in the Persian time period, the Babylonian exile, will not happen to you. You will not be judged, and all those things, those curses will not happen. That's pretty much what he was saying. Worship God, worship Yah alone, and you'll be blessed forever. That's it. Now, what we find now is that these people go into different people's culture, and they meet people, and they do business, and people say, hey, I want to hook up with this guy. I want to hook up with that guy. You want to be with the top people. And these Jews were top of the class. They were normally the best traders. They normally had more money than a lot of people. In fact, the Taoud community I talked about, where they were considered the Rothschilds of their era. So when you look at it that way, you want to be down with the folks that got money. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with being a convert and trying to practice a religion. I'm not anti your religion, but you need to know that you can't condemn other people based off of pretty much a made up religion. Just to be honest. So if you have a problem with what I'm saying, you could always email me at axbrothergarfield@gmail.com and just let out all your anger in the email. There's nobody to respond and fight you, and I will kindly respond to whatever words you use, as long as you're respectful. All right.
Sure.
But moving forward, the Hebrew Israelites they're not a dangerous group. They're just some brothers who are trying to live by the laws and live by the commandments. They're not a bad. They're just misinformed. That's all they are, misinformed, but they're not trying to build no army to hurt you or hurt anybody who's quote unquote Jewish or white out there. They're just basically saying, hey, I believe this and it belongs to us. But I'm telling them it's foolishness. It's made up. What you talking about, the 12 tribe charts, the Jamaicans is this, the Cubans is this person is this, the Native Americans is this. It's crazy.
And you mentioned that you're not just trying to tear down people's faith. You're doing this because you see this as people rejecting their own real history.
A real identity. And in my book, I do give a solution that they could unite and start credit unions and build and get their own farmland and do things. I do make a suggestion at the end of the book so that they could look and use what they're using. I mean, people are going to believe what they want to believe, man. You got people believing cows. You got people saying Haile Selassie is God. Oh, we got to do a show on Haile Selassie one day, the Ethiopia.
Yeah, for sure.
My chapter, Ethiopia is not Ethiopia right now, on Clubhouse. Hey, are you guys on Clubhouse?
No, I don't think so.
You got to get on Clubhouse, man.
Yeah.
Because Clubhouse got a lot of following, and we're gonna you could broadcast from Clubhouse and YouTube at the same time.
Yeah.
There's something called Club Deck. So I'm doing a debate, I think Wednesday, about some Kish and Kush garbage. So I mean, I'm gonna do it that way. But I'm telling y'all, get on Clubhouse, man. It's nice.
Yeah. Speaking of Ethiopia, there's a super chat. Do you want to get the super chats?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
First super chat has been waiting for a long time. Thank you for the super chat. Yakuv Itzraim. Could it be possible that the Black Hebrew Israelites are related to the Ethiopic Jews? You sort of touched on this a little bit, but if you want to answer that,
I don't like the word possible, because then you're going into belief, and anything is possible.
Anything's possible, right?
Anything is possible. So I'll say this: from my research, there's really no connection to the Ethiopic Jews, because the Ethiopic Jews is a very interesting study. And I might have to come back and do a whole show on it. The Ethiopian Jews, if you're stemming from the Yemenite Jews, who come from the Himmerite kingdom, who come from converts, then you could see how, because of the Aksumite Empire and where it's situated, you could see how they learned Judaism. But before King Izana, remember, I don't know if you noticed, if you read the chapter, Ethiopia is not the proper name for that location. It's not the Ethiopia of the biblical text. And I think people who live there today feels, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody that live in Ethiopia, because my family don't talk to me now. They moved there from Jamaica. They don't talk to me because of that chapter. Ethiopia is not Ethiopia. They're referring to Kush, which is actually Nubia. All right? King Izana took the name on after he beat up part of the Kushite Empire and took it on. All right?
Wow. That's interesting. Thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for that answer. Moloch, this one's not a super chat, but I did tell them that I was going to ask this for him. Is this the same Hebrew Israelites who triggered the 2019 standoff between Nick Sandman and Native American elder Native? And that you're nodding your head, yes.
Yes, it is. It's the same group, my brother. Same group.
Wow.
They're pretty much universal in the sense that they change a lot of their rhetoric from the past. But these are good brothers. These are good men who try to live upright. They don't smoke. They don't drink. They take care of their families. They're living a good, upright life. So let me just say that that's what they're doing. They're building a community doing that.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. They're just like any other religious group. You know, they have their ideas. They do their laws. They do, like, you can't single them out as anyone's different than anyone else. So Yakuv Itzraim says, thoughts on Josephus against Apion that states that Moses was called Osiris, the god of Heliopolis, and changed his name to Moses.
I don't recall reading that, and I have read against Apion. Maybe my eyesight missed that part, but that's a very interesting thing. And you know, I find that very weird that he would write that.
Yeah.
Or you know what? Let me say this to Yakuz. I think you're misinterpreting that. And the reason why I say that because it's against Apion. He's writing against the claims of Apion.
Right.
So maybe he's writing it out to make a point, because I don't see why a Jew would say Moses is Osiris. Technically it don't make sense. But I'm not going to jump the gun because I don't have it in front of me. But I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's something we can look into later on and take a look at. There is some interesting stuff in these texts from Josephus, though. So that's a good super chat.
It does say Abraham's wife Sarah was kidnapped by Nico, and Nico was 7th century BC. Makes no sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. A lot of weird stuff like that.
1,000 years before, you know?
Yeah, interesting. Let's see. The next one is, it's from Yaakov again. Thoughts on Ham, Shem, and Japheth?
Hey, I got to tell you this, man. I'm working on a project for BBC in the UK, and they asked me to do a project, and my project is the curse of Ham. Now, when people hear the curse of Ham, they think about the Talmud, and that's it. We need to understand that this has changed Black people's lives forever. Neil, if I go to New Zealand right now with you, I will be stopped by the cops before you.
Right.
Just because of the color of my skin. And it all stems from, remember, Christianity, you have over almost 4 billion Christians in the world. Protestants, Catholics, all mixed up together. And let me explain to everybody that's watching. The curse of Ham was, the issue is when Ham was meant to, they say it's defined as being black. And that's a whole other conversation, because Goldenberg proved that the word that they use as a root word to Ham does not mean black. So it technically doesn't mean black at all.
Right.
Don't mean black. But in the past, it meant black, and they attached it to slavery with a book called The Caves of Treasures. I think it's an East Christian book. I think it's The Caves of the Treasures. And then after that, you had a Talmud that said that we had big nose, thick lips, and long donkey private parts because we are cursed black. But the issue is the Arabs took it on. When the Arabs took it on, they said that Cush, which is what they call all black people is Cush because of the color of their skin. They said we are cursed because we are Canaan's son, Cush. Canaan in the Bible's brother is Cush, not son. So they're saying that we are cursed Cush, and we are Cush because we're dark skinned. So now it's attached, the Ham is attached to slavery, and the Talmud and the Arabs taking it over. Now all of a sudden, because we're dark, they are justifying for enslaving us with the trans-Saharan slave trade. Now when the Portuguese came to the borders of West Africa, they said, you see, the Muslims call them Kush and they curse. So we are justified in enslaving them because of the color of their skin. So now people might say today, well, I'm not racist. I know Neil's not racist. I know Derek's not racist. Most of the scholars we deal with on a daily basis, they're not racist. But what happened is in your subconscious, you have that curse of Ham story, which is really not a curse of Ham. It's really a curse of Canaan. But that story has been remixed. And that's what happened. In your subconscious, you growing up, you look at black people and say, hey, they are cursed. They are cursed. This over and over, whether it's wrong. We know in the Bible it's not talking about black people. We know that. But people will misinterpret the text and use it for their own purpose. So now we are Cush and we are cursed because of Canaan. So it's us. So we have been punished for the longest. So if a Hebrew Israelite says we are cursed, we are going to feel despised and rejected because you are a black man in America and you're a black man in the world. So in France, you have issues with this. In Britain, you have issues. In America, you have issues with this. Even in my own home country, Jamaica, we bleaching our skin to be white because we would rather be white than be dark and go through all this subjection. So I say that to say this. When you say, what is Ham, Shem, and Japheth, it means a lot to me that this story of Ham has really put it on us as a people and destroyed us. And it's going to take 1,000 years to reverse this.
And it's not based on real history or genetics. Exactly. It's mythology. It's the 3 sons of Noah, the first people in the world after the flood. Come on now. And by the way, this curse of Ham thing, like you mentioned how much of an impact it had. In the 19th century, the last century, basically, people were using this as justification for racism, slavery, even going back to the 19th century, 20th century, still going on. People, oh, it's in the Bible that Ham is supposed to serve Shem and Japheth. So people use that as like, oh, I'm just following the Bible, and they use that to justify slavery and racism. It's completely horrible, and it's a very childish way to look at the world. Oh, there was 3 people who were the sons of the man who survived the flood. Like, no, this is mythology, and that's all it is. There's not just 3 races. It's way more complex than that. Things aren't black and white like people try to make it out to be. You know what I mean?
Yep, for real. And just to let you know, my thoughts on Ham, Shem, and Japheth, that's based on faith. I don't debate about faith, but
Right.
I don't believe they're real people. It's all about the etiology. Russell Gmerkin, Davies, all these great scholars have talked about it. Those equivalent stories are in other cultures. All the Hebrews did was use a writing style, a literary trope to present who they are. All right? That's pretty much that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for that. Myth Vision podcast, Derek Lambert. Garfield is famous for getting the top 20 scholars in the world in 20 days. He goes deep. That's a fact. That is a fact.
Actually, hey, I gotta get a show with you and Derek, man. What I'm doing is for my 20 for 20 in Black History Month. I'm pre-recording all the interviews, so I don't have to be rushing in February.
Yeah,
and, I have them already. I did Dr. Josh Bowen recently, and that was a great interview.
Bowen's great. Bowen is great.
He's excellent. Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for that super chat, Derek. Let me see what else I got. I think there was one more after this.
Hey, Derek, you could have gave $6, bro. Why you stuck at 5? Come on, you got all
That's
the money,
funny.
man.
Wow, there's a lot of comments tonight. And this was just so many comments. Here it is. Seeking Truth 1984. Hope I didn't skip anybody. The Native Americans are Israelites narrative need to be debunked too. What do you think about that?
Well, that was why I was showing the whole Chile thing and showing that they had in the Mayan culture they were building all these different things way before the Assyrian exile because they felt nobody was here. You see, that's the thing. And then you have James Adair. That's a whole nother show, man. But that's easily debunked with genetics and linguistics because the linguistically the languages don't connect at all. And genetic wise, we're not connected at all. You're not connected with that region at all. You're from Asian people. Get over it. Get over it. That's it.
Yeah. And where's the evidence? Where's the archaeology? Where are they tracing this back to? Are they just saying this? It's not about trying to debunk people just to
it's actually a popular argument that actually needs to be dealt with. And I think if you want me to come on or if Derek want me to come on, I'll talk about it. And it's a very interesting conversation. Very, very interesting. Because you're telling people who grew up here that they're not what they claim they are. And there's some people that trying to force it, that has some genetic stuff that they trying to convince the people that it is what it is. But no.
I actually remember reading an article about an artifact being found somewhere in the South Americas where it looked like it was Phoenician or something, like it had Phoenician writing on it. And it was just this one little artifact in the middle of nowhere with nothing else, no supporting context. So they concluded that it was like a forgery, basically. Somebody planted it there to find it. Like there's nothing that backs it up at all other than it's just they found something.
Yeah, it's always something. And then when you tell them that it's fake, oh, it's a conspiracy. They don't want the truth to come out. They're trying to stop their awakening.
Right.
It's really amusing at this point, that people actually sit down and believe these things. And I actually know what you're talking about. I have the slides here.
Oh, but, let's take a look.
All right. So you have a couple of hold on, let me find this right here. All right, you know what? Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. Let's do this and we could close out.
Sure.
Is there any more super chats?
Yeah, there's one more as well. It's a good question too.
All right.
This is the one that I was talking about?
No. You have a couple of them. You have this one here, which is the New York Holy Stones. What happened with this is the guy said he found it, and then when the people complained and said it was a fraud, he actually came with another one in like a month to correct what the fraud was. I'm telling you, this is crazy.
That is crazy right there. That's
Encyclopedia of Dubious Archaeology. So
nice. I gotta take a look at this.
By the way, just email me at Ask Brother Garfield, and I'll send you the PDF over. All right. Another one. Let me see if I could find it. This one here was pretty interesting.
That's the one I was talking about. This is the one. It's got Phoenician writing on it.
All right, watch this. I'm gonna show you something right now that's gonna blow your mind. Look at the top and look at the bottom. Right?
It's the same thing. They copied it.
The same thing. They copied it from a book.
Dude, you are so good at doing this comparison stuff, man. Like this is good research right here.
They will run away from me, bro. They won't run away from me.
Yeah.
They run away from me. But this right here this took the cake. You could tell that the guy was copied literally. Black Lion, have you seen this, bro? Literally copying this. Look at the signs. Look at how they write.
It's the same exact thing, yeah.
The same exact thing.
Now, what does this say? Because I know I can read. Actually, I can actually read Phoenician. This says that's Shin, Lamek, Yod, Yod, and he Yod, he on the bottom. So that means that's let's see. How do I don't know. I don't know what it says. I can't read it. But I know the alphabet. I can work out what it says, but I can't translate it.
And it's funny you talking about it, and I was able to find the thing that you're talking about exactly. Boy,
no, you found it as soon as I started talking about it, you pulled it right up. That was pretty cool.
Here's another one they found in Puerto Rico. They're saying this is Hebrew.
Yeah. Nice.
These people are they're the best family.
It's interesting. You got to admit, it's interesting.
These people are the best. But this one here takes the cake because people still believe this is legit. The bad
nice. Yeah, interesting. The last super chat is from Graham Pong. Thoughts on Rastafari besides Bob Marley's great?
So now I got to get protection now out my house. Oh, man. They already hate me already, man. You know what's funny? The same guy that baptized Haile Selassie, and yes, Haile Selassie was baptized. He was a Christian. He had a personal spiritual guy that baptized him. The same guy baptized Bob Marley, and he told Bob Marley, I have to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost in Jesus' name. He told him it wouldn't be in Haile Selassie's name. People don't know that. So Bob Marley was a Christian. He got baptized as a Christian. And Haile Selassie got baptized as a Christian because he's not God. People need to recognize that. So with Haile Selassie, Rastafariism, it's a lot of stuff, man. I mean, Leonard Howell, who started, was the main guys. 4 guys that really started Rastafari. But to each his own, man. You know what's crazy, Neil? They'll stand in a corner and condemn a Christian, and they're using a Christian book. This is how crazy it is, bro. It is crazy out here. It is crazy. So I'm fighting from all angles. I'm fighting. They all coming, and Garfield's trying to block.
But you're just trying to find the truth. You're just going to what the facts are, what the archaeology says, what the records say. That's all you're doing. You're not driven by any motivation besides what's the answer. Mm-hmm. So I like that approach. Whatever the truth is, let's go for it.
Whatever it is, I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a question. How does Dr. Carrier feel when you tell him that you hold to a Jesus that's not supernatural? What does he say about it?
He thinks it's possible. He just doesn't. He doesn't think that. Like, what does he say about me thinking there's a historical Jesus?
Yeah.
Oh, he understands. The last time I talked to him, he said that he understands. I get it. Okay. When that comes to, because like we can't. We're going to the first Christian text. We got to go to Paul. What does Paul say about this guy? Paul says a lot of things about this guy, a lot of things that point to historicity. He doesn't give that. He takes the weight off of the things that Paul says that are pointing to historical events. I put him back on. I say, look, let's take the text for what it says. Now, if Paul is talking about things that aren't historical, you would think, not even Paul, but even later Christian texts, you would think there would be some resistance from Jewish historians, the Talmud, there are pagan resources, Celsus in the 2nd century. Somebody somewhere would say they're making all this up. This guy never existed. But we don't have any sources from anybody at any time denying this guy existed. Mm-hmm. That to me is all. That to me, that doesn't mean that I can guarantee that he existed, because the evidence is still bad. We don't have any written records from him. We don't have any physical evidence. We don't know much about the 30s in that time period. So I get why mythicism is there. I get why people feel like mythicism is true. But I think the most likely scenario is that there probably was some guy who got mythologized. That's and I think he understands that. I think he gets it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. I think there's a guy out there like that's a regular dude, and he just got mythologized. You know, they were waiting for him to come back. They started saying all these things, and but the Christians won't ever get that part.
Well, he's not the first person to be mythologized. You got Diogenes Laertius, who wrote a book called The Lives of the Eminent Philosophers, and in all of the stories of these guys, they're all miracle workers. They're all Pythagoras is talking to the animals like Dr. Dolittle. He's making, they're playing music with they're healing people with music. This is not out of the ordinary for a novel in the ancient world.
Right.
And those are all historical people that actually lived.
All right, cool.
So,
all right, any more questions?
No, that's the last one. I want to thank you for joining me, and I really like your book. I'm just going to show it one more time on the screen. You guys, go get the book. The link's in the description. Please check it out. It's worth. You guys just saw how much research he's doing. Just imagine what's in this book. Check it out.
Volume 2, you're going to see a lot of the stuff that we talked about because it's going to be like 500 claims that they make. I'm just going to put like claims and why it's garbage, and I'm going to do that so that people can be more familiar.
Oh, so volume 2 is on the way, you're saying?
Yeah, volume 2 is on the way, and I got a whole concept already set up and everything.
Yeah. Also, don't forget, before we leave, go subscribe to Brother Garfield Podcast. Every time you're live and I have time to catch it, I'm watching. I love watching your shows. You get a lot of heated debates in there, and they're very fascinating. I love them because you give everybody a fair shake. You're not just like shutting down the conversation. You're letting people get in there and argue their points, even if you disagree. That's why I really like your channel. So thank you for coming on.
All right, thank you, bro. I appreciate you for having me on. We've been trying to do this for months, man, but we always missed out. All right, but we good, man. Thank you. I'm out of here, and I appreciate you. Anytime you need me, man, just hit me up. I'm here. If you got somebody that cancel last minute, call me. Call me. You never know. All right.
Sounds good. And you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over